on the highway, the freaking highway, high-speed travel. There was an off-ramp on the left-hand lane, so in the I'm speeding lane, that immediately went into a U-turn with a stoplight. It's like, we are going to test your vehicle's braking power and your determination. When I saw that, something came between me and my Calvins.
There it is, ladies and gents. Pittsburgh Mills.
That is an enormous sign.
That is a very grandiose sign. That is a sign.
I think the top of that sign is bigger than our apartment.
It probably is. Welcome to the next stop on UniComm's inaugural Dead Mall Tour. This is Pittsburgh Mills in Tarentum, Pennsylvania, and I'm your cruise director, Kristen. We visited Pittsburgh Mills while we were in town for the Dead Mall Summit Labor Day weekend. We were really interested to see it because we started our series at the mall that became Cincinnati Mills, and this was built by the same designers around the same time. I don't need to tell you, since you're watching this, that this mall has been panned in the past not only for being empty, but for being ugly. It has made a comeback in the last 12 months to some extent. While there are corridors that are pretty light on tenants, most notably in the wings connecting to where the former Sears Grand was located, others are pretty full. The most recent occupancy figure I could find that was published in the media was 55%, which isn't great, but it's far from the 25% it was at a few years ago. It's also massive, over 2 million square feet, with high ceilings and a single-level design that doesn't let you see foot traffic above or below you. This mall would need to be absolutely packed to be crowded. The Mills designers and architects have a really specific kind of polarizing style, but I can say that the design of this mall is a lot less corny than parts of the other one I've been to is. They have themed wings, and most of these are centered around Pittsburgh-related ideas like bridges and rivers. One wing, which was supposed to be built around a NASCAR speed park that never opened, is sports-themed. It has golf balls hanging from the ceiling and checkered flag printed floors. For whatever it's worth, I didn't see any parts of this mall that had inflatable fish, giant playing cards, or neon pianos hanging from the ceiling. This mall was built in 2005, around the same time that another mall we covered, Eastgate Mall, was remodeled. Apparently butter yellow and apple green were having a moment back then, because the use of those color palettes is pretty noticeable here too. This mall isn't ugly, but parts of it are a casualty of unfortunate and sometimes boring mid-2000s design sensibility. In the name of full disclosure, I want to point out that our visit was at around 11 a.m. on a Sunday. The stores weren't open yet, and all the traffic you're seeing are either employees, mall walkers, or members of the church that has set up shop near JCPenney. All these gates you're seeing down are not necessarily because the store isn't in business anymore. They hadn't opened for the day yet, in case you were wondering why this fully stocked Spencer's Gifts is dark inside. The Pittsburgh Mills story began in 1981 when the Zamias Company started planning to build a mall on the site called Fraser Galleria. The Mills Corporation got on board in 1986. Because the site straddles several localities and sits in a municipality without its own police department, part of what kept it from getting off the ground sooner was conflicts over who would be responsible for policing the area. It began being built in 2004 and opened July 14, 2005. By 2006, the Simon Group, who had acquired Mills by now, sold its stake in the Galleria to Zamias, who would own it in full. In 2007, this property was appraised at $190 million, prior to the real estate crash and ensuing recession. In 2010, the ill-fated ITT Technical Institute opened a campus in the mall, which would close in 2016 when the entire company went under after being investigated by the Department of Education. The good news is that a nursing school is scheduled to open in its old space in October of 2018. By 2014, this mall, like many others, was experiencing the beginning of a downturn and sank to 55% occupancy, made worse by the closing of Sears Grand in July 2015. Sears Grand, if you don't know, because I didn't, is basically a Searsified version of a Kmart supercenter, so they sell everything a normal Sears would, as well as everything a Kmart would, such as pet supplies, health and beauty aids, and a small grocery section. This concept has been largely unsuccessful, and the company has either closed them completely or is converting them to traditional Kmart or Sears locations. Because of the further downturn in occupancy during 2015 and 2016, sliding all the way to 25%, the mall has made a few missteps trying to draw traffic. They erected a sky trail in the food court that took up a lot of space and did a lot to detract from what is actually a very attractive area. The structure has been documented elsewhere, so if you look at videos filmed prior to when it was removed in fall of 2017, you'll see it. It was a big, elevated metal climbing structure for kids to walk on while wearing harnesses that ran along a track. I imagine it was very noisy. Around the time the SkyTrail was built, the mall was foreclosed upon because the owners had defaulted on their $143 million mortgage on the property. By the time the mall was placed up for auction, the appraised value had fallen to $11 million, and there were no bidders. As a formality, the loan holder, Morgan Stanley, was the only bidder, and the mall was purchased for the humiliating amount of $100. Morgan Stanley put Jones Lang LaSalle in charge of managing the mall to make it more attractive to an outside buyer. The Galleria will be auctioned again in May of 2018 to be purchased by the current owner for $12 million. Maybe it's because we had spent the prior day at Century 3, a mall whose sagging ceilings are crumbling onto its water-damaged carpet. But Pittsburgh Mills is the cleanest mall I've ever been in. There isn't a leaf out of place on these trees, and the hardwood floors are shiny and clean. Is this a comeback story? That remains to be seen. There are 2 vacant anchors and the occupancy level is similar to that of secondary mall in most cities. This isn't an infamously dead fiasco anymore, just a commentary on the state of retail in 2018. On the other hand, there are also spaces in this mall that to this day, 13 years after the grand opening, still don't look like they've ever held a tenant. Who knows what the next few years might bring, especially with an influx of traffic from the nursing school. The racetrack-shaped layout makes it attractive to mall walkers, as we saw on our Sunday morning visit before the gates went up. They're using the spaces for unconventional purposes. The former Sears Grand is currently being leased by Netflix, holding props, vehicles, and production facilities while they film their original series in and around Pittsburgh. Another space is being used as a showroom for a company that makes vehicle jacks. A college, a church, they're using every angle to get people in the building. This isn't necessarily a dead mall, but it is in a tenuous position. The owners seem motivated to keep it maintained and cared for, and there are more stores than there used to be. Who knows? Whatever happens, we'll be watching. Every day, cuddly critters like these languish under glass, beneath the harsh fluorescent lighting, as hundreds of people walk right past them in this claw machine. For as little as 25 cents, you can adopt one of these precious creatures. Please help the stuffies of Pittsburgh Mills. Now, unlike that other series, another series about dirty hotel rooms, I will not be eating any soap. Oh yeah, yum. Look at that. I am so mad. You give me a $250 refund for being gross. These are not our beer bottles. Oh, I am a tiny angry woman right now. Kristen, the logistics department of UniComm, is going to be put on a performance improvement plan. Next Sunday night, our new series Failure returns with an all-new episode, and Dead Mall Date Night returns in 2 weeks. Thank you to our 108 amazing subscribers and to everyone who's watched our videos. If you'd like to chat with us and many other Dead Mall and vintage retail content creators, join the Dead Mall's Discord using the link in the description. I'm Kristen, my co-pilot is Ron, and we are UniComm Productions. We'll see you next time.